Good morning, sir. Today I am going to discuss about Leontief input-output analysis. In this we have the general format, and in general format we take two industry X, Y. D refers to the final demand, X refers to total production. Write X, Y, K, L. K stand for capital, L stand for labor. X11, X12, X21, X22. Final demand D1, final demand D2. Total production for industry X is X1, total production for industry Y is X2. Capital requirement, which is XK01, amount of capital used by first industry, amount of capital used by second industry, amount of labor used by first industry, amount of labor used by second industry. Not required, not required. So X11, amount of output of first industry used by first industry itself as input. X21, amount of output of second industry used by first industry as input. X12, amount of output of first industry used by second industry as input. Amount of X22, amount of output of second industry used by second industry itself as input. This is the amount of capital for first industry, amount of capital for second industry, amount of labor for first industry, amount of capital for second industry. D1 refers to the final demand for first industry X, that is first industry. D2 refers to the final demand for industry 2, that is industry or industry Y. Now, if we go row wise, this is the input, and if we go column wise, this is the production. Since column wise is the production, we can write X11 plus X12 plus D1 will be equal to X1, total production of X1. Similarly, we can write X21 plus X22 plus D2 is equal to X2. After we are done, we have to construct technology matrix. Technology matrix can be written in the format as AI is equals to Xij divided by Xj. This is X. So, amount of output of ith industry used by jth industry to produce 1 unit of output. Technology matrix basically shows per unit input requirement. So, we will write again X, Y, D and X, Y, K, L. So X11 divided by, we have final demand as X1, so we will divide it by X1. X21 divided by X1, XK01 divided by X1, XL01 divided by X2, sorry X1. X12 divided by X2, X22 divided by X2, XK02 divided by X2 and XL02 divided by X2. Final demand D1, final demand D2. Now X, Y, D, X, Y, K and L. X11 divided by X1 is A11. Similarly, this is A12. X21 divided by X1 is A21. X22 divided by X2 is A22. This is AK01, AK02, AL01, AL02. Final demand D1, D2. Okay. So A11, amount of output of first industry used by first industry in order to produce 1 unit of output. Okay. A21, amount of output of second industry used by first industry in order to produce 1 unit of output. A12 amount of output of first industry used by second industry in order to produce 1 unit of output. A22 amount of output of second industry used by second industry to produce 1 unit of output. AK01, it is per unit of capital required for the first industry, and per unit capital requirement for second industry. This is per unit labor requirement for first industry, per unit labor requirement for second industry. D1, D2 previously also told that D1 for final demand for X, D2 final demand for industry Y or industry second. Now after we are done with constructing the technology matrix, we will solve the equations from using technology matrix to find out the total output or total production of X1 and X2. So we can solve this using 3 methods. First is substitution and elimination. Second is inverse matrix, and third is Cramer's rule. Let's come to the substitution and elimination. I have written already this equation. So we will write the total production equation again. X11 plus X12 plus D1 is equal to X1. X21 plus X22 plus D2 is equals to X1. Now over here let's see. X11 divided by X1 is equal to A11. So A11 will be equal to X1, sorry, not A11. We will write X11 will be equal to A11 into X1. Sorry for the intervention, my pen just got finished. I'm changing my pen. I'm back again. So we know that X11 divided by X1 is equals to A11. So X1 into A11 will be equals to X11. This got multiplied this. We will use this concept over here. So we can write that X1 into A11 plus A12 multiplied by X2 plus D1 is equals to X1. Similarly, we will write X1 multiplied by A21 plus X2 multiplied by A22 plus D1 D2 equals to X2. Now we will take X1 inside and we will put D1 and D2 over this side or right hand side. So X1 A11 plus A12 X2 minus X1 is equals to minus D1. X1 A21 plus X2 A22 plus minus X2 is equals to D2. Now X1 A11 minus X1 plus A12 X2 is equals to minus D1. So we can write this equation as 1 minus A11 into X1 minus X2 A12 is equals to D1. We will remove the negative sign multiplying by X1 for the. In order to remove this negative sign, we will multiply minus 1 with these 3 terms. So we get this equation. And also I have taken X1 common over from this 2. Similarly, we can write equation second as 1 minus A22 X2 minus X1 A21 is equals to D2. We will rearrange the term in X1 and X2 terms. So we get 1 minus A11 X1 minus a12 x2 is equals to d1, and minus a21 x1 and plus 1 minus a22 x2 equal to d2. These two equation we get. Now we will use substitution elimination method. So substitution elimination, first we have to take out LCM. If you don't have any common factors, or if we have common, we multiply the term with that one or two equation, so we can match up the two equations. So in order to match up, we will multiply this equation by 1 minus a22 and this equation by a12. We'll multiply. Let's see. 1 minus a11 into 1 minus a22 x1 minus a12 multiplied by 1 minus a22 is equals to d1 multiplied by 1 minus a22, minus a21 multiplied by a12 into x1 plus 1 minus a22 multiplied by a12 into x2 equal to d2 multiplied by a12. Now we see, minus a12 multiplied by 1 minus a22 plus plus 1 minus a22 multiplied by a12. Here will be x2. This term will cancel out. If we add these two equations, so we will have, adding these two equation, one minus a11 into 1 minus a22 x1 plus this term, sorry, we have to write minus a21 multiplied by a12 x1 will be equal to d1 1 minus a22 plus d2 1 a12. So we will take out the x1 term as common, so we will get 1 minus a11 into 1 minus a22 minus a21 into a12 is equal to d1 1 minus a22 plus d2 a12. So x1 is equals to d1 multiplied by 1 minus a22 plus d2 multiplied by a12 divided by 1 minus a11 multiplied by 1 minus a22 minus a21 multiplied by a12. We found out our x using substitution and elimination method. After we found out x1, we can find out x2. And how we can find out x2? Simple. We will put x2 value in this equation or this equation. If we put x1 value over this x2 in this equation, we will get x2 obviously, because a1 minus a11 we know, and a12 we know, d1 we know, x1 we can know through these equations. So x2 will be taken out. I am writing the equation still. What is the equation? Equation is 1 minus a11 into x1 plus minus a12 x2 plus d1 is equal to d1. So after we know this term, we can find out x2 by a12 x2 is equals to d1 minus 1 minus a11 into x1. So x2 will be given as d1 minus 1 minus a11 x1 divided by minus a12. Okay, x2 is equals to, now we will put x1 value on this equation, we will get x2, x1 value on this equation to get x2. So we have solved using substitution and elimination method. Now we will solve using Inverse matrix method. Equation was, what was the equation again? Okay, x1 x1 into 1 1 plus x2 into a12 plus d1 is equals to x1 x2 a21 plus x1, sorry, x2 multiplied by a22 plus d2 is equals to x2. Write this equation in terms of matrix format. So how we can write? We can write this as a11 a12 a21 a22 multiplied by x1 and x2 plus d1 and d2 will be equal to x1 and x2. Suppose this matrix is A, this is x, this is plus d is equals to x. So ax plus d is equals to x. In order to get rid of x, we will take x this side. So ax minus x is equals to minus d. Multiply the equation with minus 1 to get rid of this minus. We will get x minus ax is equals to d. This equation. Taking x as common, identity matrix minus a is equals to d. Now we can write this equation as I minus a into x is equal to d. Multiply here or here, doesn't matter. Now in order to get rid of I minus a, we can use the inverse or so I minus a inverse into I minus a x will be equal to I minus a inverse d. We know that a inverse into a is equals to I, right? So a into this I minus a inverse into I minus a is x is equals to I minus a inverse into d. Now x is equals to I minus a. What is the inverse formula? 1 over determinant of a. So 1 over determinant of I minus a multiplied by adjoint of I minus a into d. So x is nothing but x1 and x2 will be equal to 1 over determinant of I minus a multiplied by adjoint of I minus a into d. Now let's come to our matrix I minus a. I is what? Identity matrix. So we can write 1 0 0 1 minus a11 a12 a21 a22. So 1 minus a11 multiplied by minus a12 minus a21 and 1 minus a22. So this matrix, we come back to again equations a1 minus a11 matched. So we have this matrix and we have to take out this determinant. So in order to take out determinant of I minus a is equal to multiply this term, the 1 minus a11 multiplied by 1 minus a22 minus a12 into a21. This is the determinant. Now we will do adjoint, of course, adjoint of I minus a. Adjoint of I minus a. And for 2 cross 2 matrix, there is a short simple cut method. Just replace the principal diagonal matrix 1 minus a22 1 minus a11 and change the sign a12 a21. Adjoint done. Now we will multiply this with this is a constant matrix which is d1 and d2. So we will have 1 minus a22 d1 into plus a12 d2. and a21 d1 plus 1 minus a22 d2. Now after we have multiplied, we will divide it by determinant. So x1 and x2 is equal to 1 over determinant of a, which is this is the determinant, 1 minus a11 multiplied by 1 minus a22 minus a12 into a21 and multiplied by 1 minus a22 multiplied by d1 plus a12 d2 a21 d1 plus 1 minus a22 d2. So this is the final answer using x1 and x2 inverse matrix method. Now we will use Cramer's rule. Now let's come again back to the question, which is 1 minus a11 into x1 plus minus a12 x2 is equal to d1 and minus a21 x1 plus 1 minus a22 x2 is equal to d2. So Cramer's rule in Cramer's rule we will multiply this, we will write this in matrix form, 1 minus a11 minus a21 minus a12 1 minus a22 multiplied by x1 and x2 equal to d1 and d2. So first we will take out determinant of d, which will be same, 1 minus a11 into 1 minus a22 multiplied by minus a12 into a21. This is determinant. Now we will take out dx1. We will replace the first row with the constant, which is d1 and d2 multiplied by minus a12 and 1 minus a1, minus a12 and 1 minus a22. So in order to take out dx2, we multiply the principal elements, d1 multiplied by 1 minus a22 minus plus a12 multiplied by d2. This is the dx1. So and we know that d is equals to d over here 1 minus a11 multiplied by 1 minus a22 and minus a12 into 12 into a21. So this is the d and dx1. In order to take out x1 is equals to dx1 over d. Very simple. dx1 is d1 multiplied by 1 minus a22 plus a12 into d2 divided by 1 minus a11 multiplied by 1 minus a22 minus a12 into a21. Now we will take out dx2, replace the item with 1 minus a11 and minus a21 and here d1 and d2. Multiply all this term with d2 multiplied by 1 minus a11 plus a21 multiplied by d1 dx2. So we found dx2 and d, you already know that 1 minus a11 into 1 minus a22 minus a12 into a21. So x2 will be equal to dx2 divided by d, which will be equal to d2 1 minus a11 multiplied by a21 d1 divided by 1 minus a11 into 1 minus a22 minus a12 a21. Done. Using Cramer's rule we found out x2 and x1. All the three method explained. Okay, done. Thank you, sir.